Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Royal Talens Creators Studio. So excited to be back with you. We've had a little hiatus, as you know, but now we're going to kick off this season with a very special guest. She is an award-winning painter whose work has been recognized by some of the leading organizations in representational art, including the Portrait Society of America, where she received an Award of Excellence in 2025 and was a finalist in the International Portrait Competition. Her work has also been recognized by the Hoosier Salon, the American Impressionist Society, Oil Painters of America, International Artist Magazine, and Southwest Art. What I especially love about her story, and you guys are going to enjoy this, is the path that she took to get here. Rather than following a traditional art school route, she built her education through 4 intensive years of workshops and apprenticeships with leading artists and has been painting full time ever since. Today, she works across portraiture, landscape, and still life while teaching and building community through her online life drawing program. And we'll talk about that some more today, too. So, everybody, join me in welcoming Stephanie Paige Thomson. Stephanie, how's it going?
It's going really great, Jeff. It's great to see you here and to get to chat for the first time face to face in a long time. And thanks everybody for joining. It's just so fun.
Absolutely. It's so much fun. I was mentioning earlier as we were prepping how on my travels, so many people have come up and say, how come you guys aren't still doing the Creator Studio? And so here we are. And you're right. It's just so nice to be able to get together and talk about painting, about materials, geek out, if you will, and be able to spend some time together. It's really good to see you. And everybody who's here, thank you for coming out. And hopefully you'll enjoy the show. So, folks who have seen the show before, but if you're brand new, what we're going to be doing is having an interview with Stephanie. So, I've got some questions for her. Going to put her on the spot.
For
And then,
better or worse,
there
here
we
you
go.
got me.
Looking forward to it. And then I've got some images. She was kind enough to send some pictures of her studio, which you guys are going to love. And I already told her I'm awarding her the cleanest studio prize ever on the Creator Studio. And then we're going to look at some of her paintings, and she's going to share some insights about them as we go through them. And then afterwards, we'll have a quick kind of wrap up, and then also talk about some upcoming events and things like that for Stephanie. So, with that said, I want to talk first about your education choice. Um,
Yeah.
I think, historically, it's not a unique route, but certainly in the last 50 years, it's a unique route as many folks, artists, aspiring artists, are looking at colleges or private art schools for their education. So, what was kind of your motivation? What made you choose a different path?
It was sort of a multifaceted decision that happened over a year-long period of time versus, it wasn't just a impulse decision to take workshops. So I was always very artistic. And when I graduated high school, I was 17 and I realized, I actually would like to pursue this. I knew that I actually couldn't draw, which was interesting because I would do a lot of portraiture and figurative work, but it was always looking away or, faceless fashion type drawings. But I was very, very artistic. And so in painting and all of this, so I reached out to actually a high school art teacher. He had taught an art class that I was in first when I was 7 years old. He taught all kinds of different ages and then a high school age class. And he said, you need to reach out to CW Mundy. So I lived then, I've since moved away and moved back. I live in the Indianapolis area and CW has lived in Indianapolis. And so he said, you need to reach out to him. He's one of the best artists alive and he lives right in your area. And so I tried to get in a workshop with CW. I didn't just have his phone number and neither did he, but I did eventually get to meet CW, and by doing that, I signed up for a workshop that was being hosted. I couldn't get into CW's, but I got into another artist. And because of being in that area, they're happening in the same place at the same time, I was able to meet him. So it was sort of, he was sort of the catalyst, that high school teacher saying, you need to reach out to CW. And then that other workshop I took, I realized I don't know anything about painting. And it was a landscape workshop. And so I started to realize, okay, I am artistic. I have the drive, but I have no idea I don't know anything about the fundamentals, but all of a sudden knew what the fundamentals were. So then it was like, okay, do I go to an art school? Do I keep going with this workshop? Do I go to these ateliers? And different people are pushing because everyone looks and says like, oh, you're 17, and if they had a good experience someplace, they're like, you must do this. And so the decision to do workshops, again, it was about a year-long process. I took several workshops that year with different artists in different locations. And the main reason why I stuck with workshops for 4 years, I created my own 4-year curriculum essentially, was in part because of not ultimately, but partially financial, because a lot of the bigger art schools are in very big name cities and they don't have dorms. And I wasn't going to buy an apartment in New York City. My parents were not going to buy me an apartment,
Yeah.
it would have required a huge amount of debt. And part of what I was raised with and just my personal conviction was to just have as little overhead as possible, especially going into art. So there was like a very practical reason of like, okay, if I do this, this is going to be really serious. I'm going to carry this for a long time. So it really needs to be worth it. That's why it took such a long time. And then I was talking with different artists and they said, you're already working from life. You're already working plein air. You're already painting all different subject matter. You already have a very strong sense of, they saw it, I didn't see it, a strong sense of style. You just need to have it honed and you need to
Yeah. Yeah.
rein all this in. You're like this wild woman and you need control, but you're already doing all these things. So I would go and study with individual people that can help you with your weaknesses versus going in accruing debt, and maybe getting sort of put into a mold. They were like, you're already outside of the mold and it's already showing that you have this drive. They saw it. I
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
Every time I was like, and should I even do this? Like, should I don't know. I remember sitting down with like the artists that I was studying with, like Sue Lyon, Kwang Ho, CW Mundu, and I'm like, should I even do this? Just tell me straight, because I'll go and I'll become something else. Like, this is going to be a lot of work. And so anyway, so that it was just sort of this natural progression of like, oh, I actually can do this. I can do this in a way that works for me, that sets me up for success. I was also really young, so the idea of moving like across the country to one of these major cities just wasn't really attractive to me either. I was like 17 years old, 18 years old, just like, is that really smart? I'm not sure. So that's what I did, and I'm so grateful for it. And there's actually been a huge rise I've seen, Jeff. I'd be curious to know if you've seen this in your travels. I've seen a lot of people recently start to really pick up on this idea and do it.
I think so. Yes. I mean, I think you called out one of the number one reasons, and that's the debt.
Yeah.
To go to a university art program or especially a private school art program can cost thousands of dollars. And a lot of these students, as talented as they may be, are accumulating so much debt. And it is a weight that they carry for the rest of their life. And I think that is driving a lot of folks to revisit what I would call a traditional path for an artist, finding a professional artist, becoming an apprentice, learning everything you can, and then, moving on to another person, like you said, until you feel like you've got the ground under you, and then start striking out on your own. I think it's a great way to look at it. And there's still an investment. You still got to pay for a workshop. You still
Oh
got
yeah.
materials. There's still expenses. So it's not a free ride. But it's something that I think is much more manageable, especially for expectations. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
For
have you
sure.
ever had, I mean, I can see somebody saying, oh, well, if you don't have that bachelor's or master's, do you ever find that that has held you back? I don't know if that's an issue anymore.
No, I haven't. And what's interesting was there were different people. I studied with particular people that would help with my weaknesses, but then also there were some people that I sought out because of their manner of learning. So one of those individuals was Johanna Harmon. She is a Colorado. I think she's actually back in Arizona now, but I love her work. I love her. And she was pivotal for me. So I studied with her because she had studied with Kwang Ho and these other living masters and had a flourishing career. So part of it was I loved her work, but also I was going to pin her down at every lunch hour, which I did. Sorry, Johanna. And ask her, how did you do this? How did you make this work? And so Wait, I just all of a sudden blanked completely on your question. Can you remind me what the initial part was? I'm just going down memory
No,
lane to the
if ever
bachelor.
not
Yes,
having yeah, the degree.
yes. Okay, really quick. She was really interesting because she said schools are asking me to come teach painting. I have no degree in this. Galleries don't care. If your work is excellent enough, they want you to come because at that point they realize you know something. It doesn't matter what's on the paper, and it doesn't work in the reverse as well. You know, if you have all the paper but your paintings don't look good, they're not going to ask you to come demo. They're not going to ask you to come teach. They're not going to come ask you to be the keynote speaker. And she even said things like, and I've heard this from other artists, they're like, even associations I'm not a member of have me come to be on panels and at their competitions and at their conferences. I'm not even a member of them, not because I don't want to be, but just because I can't be a member of everything, right? And it doesn't matter if your work speaks for itself. And then ultimately, the collector, a collector by and large is not looking and saying like, oh, this painting makes my heart sing, but what level of education did that artist have? You know, it's like they do not actually
It's
care.
always about the work first, right? It's always
Yes,
about the work first.
yes, yes. So I really clung on to that and just hoped that that would really be true, and it has been true.
No, that's great. Great answer. It's a great thing to talk about. I think everybody is asking themselves those questions, especially if they're just getting started and looking at the different options out there. And I think it's a great way. Even if
Yeah.
you're, well, especially maybe when you're later on in life, right? You're not gonna at 50 or 60, enroll in an art program at the local university. You might take a class here or there, but I think there's still a lot of artists out there giving workshops and one-on-one training,
Oh,
which would be
yes.
great opportunities that can help you make progress by leaps and bounds compared to struggling in your studio by yourself.
100%. I think there's more workshops being taught than I've ever seen in more places around the world as well. And I think our creative spirit can be very fragile sometimes. And adding stress in whatever form it might be, stress of a deadline, stress of not being able to afford the pigments you're using, so that's holding you back, or stress around, you just had a tense conversation, like it could be anything. Stress, you have a meeting coming up that you're not sure how to handle, just like you don't have enough time to paint, there's all these things. But for me, stress about having a lot of overhead, and then stress about feeling like I'm not in the right place would be really difficult, would have been really difficult for me as a beginner painter, so this route really helped me. And then it showed me that, yes, there is importance in being in certain places at certain times, like being at certain shows at the opening, being at certain conferences, being in person at certain, whatever it might be. That is very important, but I don't have to be, personally, I don't believe, and I haven't experienced, I don't have to be in this metropolitan city all of the time in order to become a real life artist. What I need to do is I need to be at my easel. And my easel has been in a basement for 10 years, and it's been in a very, like, the tiniest spaces, and so that creative spirit doesn't, I like to leave it as unburdened as possible so that it can flourish and not, have this fear of, am I in the right place? So like you said, for people that are watching, if they're thinking, oh, am I too late? Am I in the right place? I live in this Midwest town, there's not like these great galleries. That doesn't matter, right? It matters what's happening between you and the easel and the painting. And then you can have a career all across the world nowadays with social media and with just the ease that we can ship paintings. So I'm going on a little bit of a tangent there, but I'm very passionate about helping people. If you want to be an artist, I think that you really truly can be, and you don't have to feel like, oh, I missed it. I missed being at the Palette and Chisel when Richard Schmid was there. Yeah, you did. We all did. But all of his students are teaching, and you can go to their workshop, right? And you can literally be right in the next line of people. So
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of ways to find community. I think there was a time where maybe you had to, make that trek to the big city or where the art market or where art was selling, right? But I think today we're probably like the original remote workers artists. Today it is really a lot easier to find community and find opportunities for your artwork. There are certainly some events that are always beneficial to attend, but yeah, you don't have to live in New York City. You can live wherever you want to live, wherever you're inspired, wherever you
Mhm.
find yourself today, and make good painting.
Yep.
Um, Before we get into looking at the paintings that you
Yes.
sent, we got to talk about materials, right? So, so oil paint. What was it about oil paint that drew you, and why do you still use it today?
Ooh, no one has ever asked me that question. I love that question. I took my first oil painting class when I was 11 and did these cute little, not very good oil paintings and learned all about them. And I kept oil painting. And I think the reason that I initially started with oils was because I was obsessed with going to the museums and looking at Monet and Van Gogh and Sargent. And I didn't see that many Soroyas, didn't see that many Zorns where I was, so I wasn't aware of those. But I saw the oil paintings and I spent hours. My family went to Washington, D.C. when I was probably 10. I think I turned 10 on that trip. And we went to the National Gallery, and I literally was going at a snail's pace. And the whole rest of my family is like languishing on these benches, that they put down that I have never, I was like, what are these even here for? Just decoration? I'm never going to sit on one of these. And my mom saw that I was just like alive, looking at these paintings. I'm getting in trouble because I'm getting too close. And so my dad took all of my siblings to a different, what's the word, monument or site in Washington D.C. and we stayed all day long. So I just had always had this visceral sort of reaction to oils, I would say. So then when I think the next year I took that workshop that then taught me how to. It was just like again, high school or before high school if I was 11. And they showed me how to paint with oils and I just never stopped. So then it felt like a natural progression. I didn't have any idea how to use them really, but I was painting a lot with them. So then when I finally got into my first workshop, which was with Ken Backus, a great landscape painter, and I was like, oh, here's like the principles so I can actually control this instead of just hoping. I've been struggling for 10 years, not 10 years at that point, 7 years at this point to try to understand this and hoping that it would turn out. So I think it was just that initial love I'd always had from just a very young age. And then I got a very rudimentary understanding as a young child. And then when I got into that workshop, it was like, yes, this speaks to me. I love the sculptural aspect. I play with watercolor. I do it on vacation. I do it for little sketches. I don't really sell them. They're just like my personal. I show them, but I don't. I don't make it a part of my like career necessarily. But yeah, the oils. I love building up the paint and the layers and how adaptable it is. How you can never really truly make a mistake that can't be fixed. They're the best.
Yeah, yeah, they're beautiful material. I mean, their consistency is unique. Their working properties are unique. They really are a special material. They were the first paint that I learned with too. I work
Really.
with many different mediums now, and I probably majority of my work is with acrylic, but oil paint was my first love and passion and introduction into painting.
Hmm.
For
I
sure.
even remember as a child, we had this thing of oil pastels, like this Tupperware box. I can still see it. And I remember using it just for little craft and feeling this like crawl down my spine. I did not like the way that it felt. I did not like the way that
Yeah.
acrylics felt. And when it was like, when I got to oils, it was like, oh, this is what I wanted the whole time. This is what those other things couldn't be.
That's
Oh
wonderful.
man.
Wonderful. Well, this is perfect. Let's go ahead now and take a look at your studio and take a look at paintings. I've
Let's do.
got some images all set up, ready to go. So please be patient with me, everybody. I'm going to share my screen.
This is where I'm sitting right now.
Where you're sitting right now. Look at that beautiful setup. So you said this is pretty recent.
Yes, yes, this is very recent. So I've always, aside from a brief stint above ground, I've always had a below ground studio. First in my parents' basement, my dad had a wood workshop in the unfinished side of my childhood home, and he gave me this tiny little portion. So I have moved from a very, but various basements throughout where I've lived. And my latest rendition is of our house now here. We had a big unfinished storage area, and we had it finished over the summer to be a larger studio because with what we're doing, what I'm doing on Patreon and the Confident Brushstrokes Patreon, and with my live painting sessions, I just was getting really, really cramped in the small space that I had. We had one finished area of our basement, like the builder, when they built the house, they just finished like this small portion, but they left this big unfinished area. And so anyway, so that's what this is. So my easel and my tabaret, it's all literally right here where I am. And we have a little sitting area down here for sitters when I have
Yeah,
painting
let's go ahead.
portraits.
I got pictures of it all you sent me. It's beautiful. So that's a little broader of
Yes.
where you're at right now.
Yes. So there's my Hughes easel, which is the joy of my studio. I've been waiting for years and years and years and years to have this easel, and I finally was able to. I bought one secondhand last fall, so we're coming up on our 1 year anniversary together, and it is so beautiful. And then you can see that's where I have my models come sit. You see some camera equipment hanging from the ceiling and from on that left hand side, so that's for live streaming the life painting sessions that I do twice a month. That I sit at the easel, and then my husband runs the technology. That's his chair to the right. So we've got a nice little working area that we share here, and then right behind that, I think you can see that in the next picture, Jeff, is yeah, so then you can see there's a little sitting area. So oftentimes when I have people come sit, whether it's a commission or for the live stream sessions, they often will bring a friend or a family member. So then they can sit there. And then this is also where I spend a lot of time creating social media content. I finish the painting and I realize, okay, actually I have to post that reel. And so then I'm doing work there and stuff like that.
No, it's a great space.
I'm really grateful for it. It is really exciting. I think you can create great work in any space. Whatever you have, make it work. And this one, I'm really grateful to have a dedicated space. I've never had a space that was like really designed to be for painting. So it's really cool.
No, it's beautiful. Oh, and here's another look at the chill area. You got to have a chill area in your studio.
I got my Richard Schmid books out there, some Andrew Wyeth, so just
inspiration. Yeah.
yes. That's exactly right.
Fun. It looked like the wine cellar on the other side of it. Is that a wine cellar or just another storage area?
Okay, so that is a
Going back,
big.
you guys, you see this area over here? I'm talking about on the right.
Okay, so that is storage. So
Okay.
when we built this, when we designed it, we were like, we don't really need that much closet space. We just want to have as much room as possible for filming, for paintings, for all these things. And then we realized, well, we actually do have things that we just need to store. So those are just big cabinets. They're actually from IKEA, and they store a lot of things. So all my backdrops, my paint, our camera equipment, lights, is all back there. And then around the corner, there is a sink. You can't see it, but right around that corner, there's a sink for washing brushes.
Perfect. Somebody's probably back there watching right now saying, well, it should be a wine cellar.
Yeah.
You need a couple bottles of wine in your studio.
My husband said that. He's like, it'd be so cool to like host. And I was like, well, I'm not going to drink it while I'm painting or else the painting's going to go terribly. So yeah, we'll see.
For those VIP studio visits.
Exactly. My husband's going to watch this and he's going to be like, we're putting up a shelf. Oh, and then now we're getting into the paintings.
Now we're
Okay.
painting. So let's start with this one. Tell us about it.
This is a still life. I painted this in completely from life at the beginning of last year. I distinctly remember my son, who is now 2.5 almost, was almost 1, and he started taking these incredibly dependable naps. And I just I was so laser focused on this painting, and I just set up these onions. Painted them from life completely, which was really special. And I really wanted to play with the color and also just get that feeling like if I touched those onions, they would crinkle. It was really a fun challenge to paint these.
No, it's beautiful. There are so many things I like about it. The composition's wonderful, the colors, kind of the complementary colors you have going on there too. The thing that really jumped out at me is the wonderful reflections. I hope everybody's taking a look at those, that wonderful blues and the reflections there that really just bring it to life.
Thank you. I'm such a huge fan of Soroya and then a living painter, Rose Franson. And I was spending a lot of time looking at their works and realizing part of why their paintings are so colorful is just because they put the color in. Like if you just put the blue in, then it'll be there and it'll be very colorful. And so with this one, I really started to test, and I've continued down that road of testing, putting a lot more color in. If you have the value right, you can really do a lot with color, and
Hmm.
it will make sense. And then having that complementary color, even if it's not like, throwing some green into a red apple actually makes the apple appear more red in my
Yeah. Yeah.
experience.
No, absolutely. And the rich violets and reds you have, and gets that one green onion, it just sets it off. No, it's a beautiful, beautiful painting.
Thanks. Thank you. It's really a fun one to paint. Oh, and then this one, I also painted this one completely from life. And you can watch the entire process of me painting this one from the very first stroke to the very last stroke on my Patreon. I filmed the entire thing and I talked through the entire thing. So apparently I like painting square still lifes. This is another square still life. And I found this teapot at a antique mall, and really wanted to play up the glow of the different elements. So I made that front clementine. That one was a clementine, and all the rest were oranges because I wanted the size comparison. So I made that guy glow just a little bit more, and yeah, this was a really fun one to paint. This one actually, I really played with that surface texture. Also, if you see on that highlight of the brass,
Yeah.
I painted it and then I let it dry between sessions, and then I came back and sort of scumbled the paint. I glazed it a little bit. I put some cooler tones on top to show sort of that. I don't know if this is the right word, Jeff. You might help me out. It's like oxidization, or what happens to the brass when you don't.
Oxidation. Yeah. Oxidation.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was pretty close. So I wanted to show that. So I did that with some layering. And again, if people are interested, they can watch the entire thing be painted
Yeah.
on
No, it's
my
beautiful.
Patreon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The brushstroke that a little looser on this one than the one that we just saw.
I am always on a mission to say more with less. It is constantly there's a painting actually in here that really taught me a lot about how it's more interesting to say more with less information to me personally than spelling everything out for the viewer. So that makes me excited that you say that, because I've been working on that for literally years. I still am.
It's great. It's great. I love the energy in it, and I love the reflection on the table. I think that's beautiful. I mean, it's all beautiful, but that really jumped out at me, and how much that brings the painting to life. And I love the square format. It's a very neutral format. It's not landscape oriented. It's not portrait oriented. It gives you this kind of neutral space. It's very iconic in that way, I think.
I like that. I've never heard someone describe it that way. Yeah, for some reason, for still life, I really like the square. Probably, I feel like it helps me think more abstractly versus when I start to get really kitschy. I feel like when I do more of a traditional, it feels like just enough to make me start thinking at the shapes instead of start just trying to paint something, like pretty, quote unquote. I start really diving into the principles when I've got a square.
Yeah, it's great. It's very self-referential, I think, this square. I like
Ooh.
that.
What do you mean by that? Can I ask?
Well,
Self-referential.
as I was saying, you have the vertical format, which is always kind of, you're thinking of it in terms of the figure. The horizontal format, we're always looking out a window at a landscape, but the square kind of refers back to itself. It brings you back in from top to bottom, one side to the other. So it becomes this thing in of itself, rather than referencing something outside of itself.
That makes a lot of sense. So exactly like what the word sounds like is what you meant by it, so thank you for explaining.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
It's a
No, it's
great, it's a
wonderful.
great descriptor. Hmm.
All right, here's another one. Kind of
Oh,
the
yes.
landscape here.
I'm actually now working on a big series. You can be the first to know about this, of landscapes. and this was sort of this was a piece I did again last year, and it's another square. I don't know what was going on with me last year. I just love these squares. This is a scene from Maine. So in southern Maine, we've spent. I spent some pivotal time there in 2019. It's actually where I met my husband. It's where I grew up. I met Jamie Wyeth and painted his portrait, and I just had an unbelievable experience in the summer of 2019 that I lived there. And so this was not painted that summer. It was a subsequent trip, but I've spent 4 years doing portraiture so heavily, and some landscape as well. And then dove into landscape after sort of graduating from my workshop experience, and I love painting the ocean. So this one, it was right before a big nor'easter. They call that the nor'easters in New England, when a
Hmm.
big storm comes through. And so it was this crazy nor'easter, and I was actually I remember it was so cloudy, and it was about to rain on me almost like at any minute that I was down there. This was painted in the studio, but I did a plein air painting on location, a smaller one that I have since sold. So got the colors from that, and I had to like climb down all these rocks. And I remember, I think at the time I was like 16 weeks pregnant with my firstborn, and I was like, is this really very smart of me? Like, and I was looking around, there's a ton of people around. It wasn't dangerous at all, but I did all of a sudden, I was like, is this okay? And then other people were around, and I was like, yeah, we're okay. And everything was fine, but it was just like this crazy, the ocean is like crashing. And I was like, should I be like this close? I don't know. But it was fine. It all worked out. Now this is
You
in a
really
collection.
feel the power in it, and I think you captured that sense of the oncoming storm. I look at it, and I'm, living in a coastal region myself. Just that
Yep.
sense when the clouds are rolling in, and rain is coming. It's just not there yet. I really feel that in this painting.
Thanks. That means a lot. You would know that
Yeah,
foreboding feeling up there and
yeah.
on the Pacific Northwest.
The size of this painting. Do you remember what the size is on this one?
It's a 12 by 12.
Were the other two that same size?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I know I have a lot of 12 by 12s when I bought a whole pack of them a while ago, but yeah, this was around the same time I painted those. I must have been really into it. It's not too big.
No, it's great. It's great. You pack a lot into the small size for sure.
Thanks. Thank you. It was a fun one to do for sure. Oh my gosh, this one. All right, I have things to say, but do you have a question first before I dive in? Sorry.
No, dive in, dive in. I'm not going to hold you back.
Okay, so this is a friend's farm and their cow, and there were actually two of them originally. It's a calf, and there was a brown one named Nutmeg here, and then they have a black and a white one. I can't remember what her name, Diamond, because she had a diamond. And Diamond was originally on the left-hand side of the painting, facing away, like walking down that path that you can see. And I love the light on her. It was so interesting. So she was in the painting. And as I kept going, I realized I don't think that she needs to be there. I think I need to paint her out. And so I painted her completely out and realized the painting just did not need that much information. So part of like what I was saying before about how I've been constantly working to say more with less,
Yeah.
also realizing that you can just say less and make it a more powerful painting. My favorite pieces are always very pointed about what they're about. There's not too much going on. It's very clear what you should look at, and it's very beautiful where the focal point is. So I painted the cow out, and then I had videoed some of the process, and so I had posted a reel about it, and it went viral. I mean, it was like crazy amount of views and people, and like on the video, I was like, should I have done this, and I wanted to know, because I was like, oh, I do think it's stronger, but like I kind of missed that other cow, and people were like, cows are, yes, this is totally the right decision, but I missed that other cow. Like, could you put, and then other people were like, could you put like a little duck in the corner because this cow looks lonely now? Or like, I feel sad for this cow. It looks like it's afraid, like it misses its friends or something. So there was like this whole like social
Oh
reaction to
my
this
God, I love
thing.
that.
Which was so funny because it was like finished and varnished and done, but people were like, the one that really got me, you should add like a little duck to the corner. It's like, I don't think I'm going to do that, but I love how people are getting invested in
The
this. So
investment, yeah, they really got into it. That's awesome.
She had no idea what a statement she made. But yeah, I love painting cows. It was
I
a
love
special
that.
piece.
Well, it shows your drafting skills are excellent. I mean, you can see it in the other paintings as well, but I really see it in this one too.
Thank you. I really think that painting portraits has helped me so much. I really emphasized painting the portrait, like I said, during those 4 years of
Mhm.
workshops, because I realized, I can paint a landscape and I can move the tree and it'll still look like a landscape. But if I can't paint the portrait and make it look like them, then do I actually have the skill to draw? Have I really? And I think there's definite differences. Landscape teaches you things about composition that only portraiture alone won't. Because it's always the same
Yeah.
composition if you're just doing heads. But then there's things that you learn from doing portraits about the form and how light falls that carry across all other subject matters. So then you get to this cow and it's those form shadows and those cast shadows, and the highlights and the halftones. It's on a different form than a face, but it's all the same, and it's the same on a tree. It's on the same on an onion, for crying out loud. So yeah, I portraits have been really helpful for me in all different subject matters.
No, that's a great comment, and portraits. That's what we're so used to seeing, and I think is the we recognize faces in every part of a face, every slight feature, and so it's much more demanding, I think, because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, portraits are hard. Ooh,
Beautiful
this was
light in this. Yeah.
thank you. This was a really fun one. I'm also a licensed falconer.
You
So
are?
yes, did you know? You didn't
I
know
did
that.
not know that.
That's a long conversation. It can become, it's very fun. It's a very fun conversation, but it's like one of those things, like socially, if things start to lull, you can be like, well, I'm also a falconer. And then there's no longer a lull. But yeah, so when I was 16, I became a licensed falconer. And so then over the last, from 16 to 22, for 7 years after I was 16, whatever that math is, Jeff, I'm not going to be able to do it in my head. I am not good with mental math, clearly, but
23, 24, somewhere in there. Yeah.
yeah, somewhere in there. I was a falconer, so I became a master class falconer over the course of 7 years. So what that means is I had wild raptors, particularly red-tailed hawks. This is a red-tailed hawk. You can see from his red tail, and you get them from the wild and you train them, and then you fly them and hunt them. And then because they are wild, they you don't raise them from a baby. They are always able to be released into the wild. And so I had this particular hawk. This hawk, I believe, was named Zorn. I've had Sergeant Zorn, and then I named a bird Phyllis because of Jamie Wyeth's wife's name was Phyllis, and it was a
Oh,
bird that I got right after I got back from Maine that summer, and I met Jamie Wyeth, so I
oh,
named
cool.
my female bird Phyllis. But I had many more than that, but this one was Zorn, and I did a lot of paintings of him. He was an excellent bird. So on this particular one, I put that crazy warm light on one side and then a really cool light. And he's wearing a traditional hood, which is a training mechanism because they're very visual, kind of like artists.
Yep.
And if they can't see, they're very, very calm and it almost resets them. So it's a training technique. It's very comfortable for them. It's very safe. And if they are trained properly, and the hood fits properly, they're extremely docile and actually love spending time. So this painting I actually painted this year. A collector reached out to me and said, I love your falconry pieces. I don't see you doing very many recently. And I was like, yes, I miss doing them. And so they commissioned me to make this one. So yeah,
Oh,
this
isn't
one's a
that
16
wonderful?
by, thank you. It was really,
What's the size on this one?
this one is a 16 by 20.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I love the palette you chose too. I mean, it's limited palette, maybe not Zorn palette exactly, but it's appropriately named.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, it's actually it's my typical palette, which is a full palette of colors, which are ironically almost more than 50% of them are Rembrandt oil paints. So, but yeah, it did end up being a very neutral I wanted it to be more neutral, all about that glow. But yeah, it is actually done with an extended palette of like 14 colors, but was able to bring in some. I'm glad you like the and picked up on. It was part of my goal was to have a very, diffused range of color,
Yeah,
except in those
very subtle.
extremes.
Yeah. And the warm light on one side and the cool light on the other. It's, yeah, beautifully done.
Thank you. It's nice of you. It's a special one. This is the painting I was telling you about, which was the piece that taught me about saying more with less.
Hmm.
Um, this was painted only with a palette knife.
Oh,
And this is actually CW Monday. So this is just a huge just recalling of our entire conversation, which is cool. So this is CW Monday, who is a living master, an absolute gem, amazing painter. And he has been a mentor for me for my entire career. I mentioned, I met him initially when I was 17. I did eventually get into his workshop, and he and his wife, Rebecca, have just been so generous with their knowledge and mentorship. And now Adam, my husband, and I are just really, really close friends. And our son actually calls him CW banjo because he plays the banjo. And the last time we saw them, CW played the banjo for our son. And so this
uh,
painting is now sold, but when it was in the house, he would walk up and he'd say CW banjo all the time. And so that was fun.
it's a wonderful
So
story.
it is really sweet. So I wanted to paint his portrait, and I asked him, I was like, you are one of the best, my biggest mentors, and I haven't ever painted you. I would just love the opportunity. Would you
Hmm.
ever be willing? And so he said yes. And so I went over one afternoon and we set up this still life in his studio. I wanted to paint him in his studio with his subject matter. And so I did this painting and I went home, and, there were things I was happy about with it, but there were things I wasn't as happy about. And he kind of talked to me, he was like, I love this. Have you ever tried painting on a really dark canvas? You could have painted this on like a really dark canvas and just brought the lights out. Have you ever tried that? And I was like, no, I don't really know at all what you mean by that. That sounds really cool. And so the next day he calls me and he's like, I want to do something with you. I want to paint this painting again with you. I love the painting that you did. He was not at all like, you need to redo it,
Right,
but he was
right.
like, I want to teach you the way that I was talking to you about painting on this dark canvas. I want to do it with you side by side, and I want to film it so that other people can watch.
Cool.
And so we did that last summer. So you actually also can watch the entire process of this being painted. CW painted the exact same painting. This is an 18 by 24. We both painted these with just a palette knife. And that color that you see of his jacket was the
Yeah,
entire color of the canvas at the start. Completely
love
like
that.
a 9 value, dark brownish black.
Hmm.
It was a very limited palette, red, blue, yellow, and black and white, and just a palette knife. And CW is teaching me this technique that he has used, this approach to painting where you work on a very dark canvas and bring the lights out. So it's called the video itself is called Uncovering the Methods of the Masters, and it is hours, 8+ hours. We're in CW's studio. It's just like an unbelievable experience for me personally, which usually those
Incredible.
things happen, you hear
Right.
about this. Oh, I studied with this person. You're like, oh, what was that like? Well, you can actually experience exactly what it was like because of CW's great generosity. He wanted to share it with everybody in the world. And so, yeah, so this is just a very special painting. And the entire time I was doing it, I just thought, this is crazy. Like my brain is bending. If I could just get my brushes out, I could make this look the way I want it to. And then it ended up, it was just like, oh, I was learning so much about paint application, just only using a palette knife. And then, feeling like, I just have like a spatula in my hand, and CW's over there with just like doing these crazy, amazing, deft marks, and I'm just over here like, ah. And then it ended up being like my favorite painting I've ever done. I think it's one of my best paintings ever. And the entire time I just thought, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I realized there's a lot of power in just kind of letting go of the expectations you even have for a painting and just
Yeah.
trying new things. Like that feeling of, I really am not sure what is going on here. But I know my values are right. I know it's in the right place, and I know the color is right. So it's, it was just a real valuable lesson to me. It's changed how I'm painting
The colors
everything
are
since.
incredible and so rich and vibrant. I love it.
Thank you. It was, again, it was a super limited
The
palette, Jeff.
surface, yeah, you can tell. I mean, just the surface, the paint is alive on the surface of this work. It's really nice.
And you could just have to see what CW's, he painted the exact same thing, and it's amazing how different, even with the same exact
Yeah.
colors, his is quite a bit different even in the color. Even though, again, we were using the same limited palette, same complete subject matter and everything. But yeah, he's a treasure, and it was a great
A great
experience.
experience, and what a great experience for other folks to hear about too. The way you took on, I mean, painting from the dark surface, which is outside of your box, right? And working with the palette knife. I think stretching like that, trying new things like that is so important for our growth as artists.
100%. 100%. Always,
Try new
always.
things, everybody. Try new things.
Yes, don't fall into a pattern, because then
No.
you're just, there could be your next best painting on the other side of kind of giving up your comfort zone. That's what happened here for me. It was just, I was so far out of my comfort zone, and then I was like, oh wow, I didn't know I could do that.
Well,
That's
your courage too. I mean, you're working with a modern master right next to him, and a lot of people would shrivel at the thought of being
in his studio
scrutinized. But
on.
on
Yeah,
video, yeah, being recorded too.
yeah, yeah. I was like, well, everyone will either see me epically fail, which I'll learn from, or I'll do something I is okay and I'll learn from that. So either way I learned, I can't lose. That's, I think, the most valuable mindset. That's always been my mindset. And when I'm when I'm going down a bad mental road in the studio, where it's just like everything is looking terrible and I'm a terrible painter all of a sudden, and I should have just not done this ever, would have been easier if I just became a dental hygienist or whatever. I've lost that train of thought, which is vital to me, is asking what if, returning
Right.
to the principles. It's not about me. It's not about the ego. It's about what happens if I throw my brushes away and I just use a palette knife, or what happens if I use more green than I ever have before, or what if I get rid of my favorite pigment and what happens, what if I turn the painting upside down, just that curiosity. That way I have way more things to paint than I ever could paint with the amount of time that I have left on this earth, even if I live to 100 years old. I will never run out of something to paint. It doesn't even matter what I'm painting, because it's about the process of painting, and I can really enjoy. We've all gone through this where it's like, oh, I want the paintings, but I don't want to go through this whole process because it's so painful. It doesn't have to be painful every time. And the painting will be more enjoyable to view if you're not in pain the whole time,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
will, the
It's a
viewer picks
great
up on
way.
that.
It's a great way to turn that inner critic into a more productive participant in the studio. And I think taking risks like that, and this sounds like that experience for you, when the painting then emerges as something that you could have never anticipated, and it would have
Yep.
never happened had you not taken that risk. Yeah.
Yep. Or if I looked at it and said, this is crazy, and just scraped it off
Yeah.
in that moment where I was like, when I finished it, I was like, I do not know what just happened. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. I am way too close. I learned a lot, but I do not know what to think about this painting. And it wasn't until like literally maybe 2 weeks later, I looked at it and I was like, wow, just with that little bit of, a
Yeah.
little bit of space, I had kind of come down, and I'd really started to incorporate and actually understand the things that he had taught me, and I could see it with real eyes. I think people often, scratch off. They're like, this isn't going well. I painted for 1 hour on it. I'm wiping it away, and it's like, okay, sometimes that's called for if it's just like really truly you made a terrible mistake at the beginning or something. But there's like, I can't think of very many things that can't be fixed,
Right.
that are so irreversible. And if you just get rid of even a painting that really is bad, if you just get rid of it, you may not have learned the things. I would really spend time with those paintings, let them exist, and come back and say, why
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Again, why? Not just, why am I a bad painter? Why? Is it because the values are wrong? Is it because the color is wrong? Is it because the edges are all the same? Is it because I just didn't control my brushes? Like, start asking these questions of myself of these paintings, instead of just like, I just have to destroy it. I think there's power in letting those pieces you're not so sure about live, so you can learn from them and really
Absolutely.
ask yourself why.
Absolutely.
Ooh,
We're drink.
this I did with the broadcasting brushers in my live painting. Again, I don't know. This is totally coincidental, the paintings I sent, but you can also watch this painting from start to finish, and also paint this gentleman's from life. So he, in my Patreon, Confident Brushstrokes Patreon, I host live model sessions, and we live stream the model and my painting and my palette in 4K resolution. So you can see the individual pores on the model. You can see them moving in space. And we do this twice a month. They're 3-hour sessions. And we have I think we have 110 artists right now in the community. And they're from 10 different countries with people, I'm like learning how to I know the different time zones better of the world because people are joining from all different time zones. And then, I'm using that translate button on Instagram when people are posting their work because now they're in all these different languages too. But yeah, so this gentleman sat for me, and he actually he's the CEO of the Indianapolis airport. And he was at the airport in New Orleans when Katrina came.
Mm-hmm.
And he, against all the city's regulations, he saw the levees in New Orleans, and he said, "These are too low. If something happens, we're going to be destroyed." And so he built the levees up. It was like a $40 million project, like crazy. He was the one that pushed it through, and it was finished. And like a month later, Katrina hit, and the only dry area in all of New Orleans was the airport. And he lived at the airport for 2 years.
Wow.
Lived at the airport, and it was where all the emergency personnel came. He delivered babies on the floor, on the tarmac of the airport, literally, while it was all this he literally delivered a woman's baby because it was so emergent as Katrina was happening. So anyway, this is why I love portraitures, because, like he has a very striking likeness and presence, but then you get to hear these stories of what makes them, like what has given that, that obvious confidence that he has. His name is Mario. It's just like these very serious life events. So this one was a certificate of excellence winner this year, 2026, at the Portrait Society, and it's just really special to have painted him from life, to get to hear his story.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I mean, it's alive for sure. He's got this kind of timeless face too. He has this look of somebody maybe from the 1950s or the 1940s. It just keeps on. I keep on looking at it, and yeah, it's like you could put him anywhere in time, and he would still have this kind of nobility.
That's awesome. I'll tell him you said that, and he'll be very flattered by that. I agree. Very, very fun to paint. Am I talking too long about these, Jeff? You
No,
just be
no,
honest.
let's keep going. Yeah.
Okay. This is another model. We just painted her not too long ago. Yoon is her name, and she is from Korea, South Korea. And she came and modeled for me. And what she's wearing is her wedding. I'm going to try to say this the right way. I practiced it so many times the night that we painted her. Hanbok, I think is how they call it, is her silk gown that she wore. So she brought this to wear, and she wore it for her wedding over 20 years ago. And she is just so stunningly beautiful. So this was started from life with the broadcasting brushers, painted it for 3 hours, and then I finished it in the studio later, and just had a blast in her skin. Oh, she had unbelievable skin, and then that silk. Oh, it was so much fun to paint. It was so fascinating to hear her story too, of just coming to the States and then staying and then raising her kids, and how she has linked them to her Korean culture. And yeah, I just love painting portraits. Again, it's like, okay, if I can get this soft transitions and turns of the form and make it then look like her, then I think I can go and paint a cow or an orange, or, like it doesn't change. And if I'm thinking about the principles and not about painting a certain technique, or, this is how I paint a nose. No, it's all just shapes of value and color. It doesn't matter what it is I'm painting. That I believe is the real superpower of the great artists. If you learn a technique, here's how so-and-so, this is my mixture for skin. If that's how you're painting, I think it's limiting versus
Right.
Learning how to control color temperature, how to see a wide range of color, how to control your values, and then you come up with, everyone has a slightly different skin mixture, especially under the lighting, and so every portrait, I could paint 100,000 more portraits. I hope I get the chance to before I die, and each one would teach me something a little bit more about painting. They're just also different.
I think you've done something wonderful in this painting. I mean, the first thing I was drawn to was the silk and how kind of effortless you kind of captured that light and reflective quality of the material. But then I've been sitting here while you're talking, staring at her face, and you really did. She looks like she's remembering, and it's interesting. You said something about her wearing her bridal. Uh,
Hanbok.
yeah, I'm never going to be able to pronounce this.
It's okay.
But
That's why I did it for you.
but
And
it's like in her face, I keep seeing it's like I can see the young bride in her eyes, and it's just really incredible how you captured that.
that's really nice of you to say. Thank you. That's fun to hear other
I'm sure
people's
she was
opinions.
thrilled with it. She must have really been thrilled with it.
She does have the painting now. So yes. Well, she has a print of the painting actually.
Hmm.
I have the original. I think I'm going to enter it into a show, but thank you. It was really a
No,
special
really
piece.
nice. And
Special
this is our
piece.
last one. I thought this was a fun one to finish on.
Yes. Okay. I also painted this one this year. And this is, I was saying this to you, Jeff. Sadly, everyone here wasn't with us when we were doing our, before we started recording. It was a fun conversation, but we just ran through. And you're asking how I was doing. And I said, I'm being more ambitious this year for a couple of different reasons. I think I just my creativity is the least fragile it's ever been in my career. And I think part of that is because of more knowledge that I've gained. But then also, I think just in the last 2.5 years that I've been a mother, and maybe just maturing in general, I've realized, my identity is not in, if I have a bad painting day, I'm not a bad painter, like I
Right.
just have this very grounded, a bad painting day doesn't matter to my son. He still greets me. And nowadays when I give him his lunch, he goes, "Thank you, mommy. Thank you for cooking it." And I'm like, no bad painting day can just like destroy me creatively the way that it did before. It was just like, oh, if I paint badly, what if I don't even want to start this ambitious painting, because what if it doesn't go well and then I'm a bad painter, and I'm just like probably more mature, but I think I'm just more well-grounded. So this painting, all that to say, and I'd be curious to hear other people. I've put the lid on my Gamsol in my studio over the last 3 years, and I have noticed a huge difference in my mental state. I no longer, I think it's multifaceted, but I no longer just spiral in the studio like I was many, 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 many times before. And I would just have my Gamsol open all the time, and I would clean my brushes with it, and I was breathing those fumes in. Gamsol does have a hormone disrupting effect. And when I stopped and I kept the lid on my Gamsol, and I stopped washing my brushes in Gamsol, I barely use it other than for toning. I no longer have that irrational negativity in my, or just like this irrational spiraling in the studio. So this is a very long, but I'd be curious to know with people watching, like, if you're experiencing headaches or just like this crazy amount of self-doubt, put the lid on your solvent and just control the environment a little bit more, because it could be totally outside of you. You could just be very sensitive to it like I am. So all that to say, this painting is possible and exists because of being more confident and just believing in myself and not stopping trying to paint something before I even begin, for fear that it might not turn out. So this is harkening back to my, I mentioned the falconry. So this is a falconer friend of mine. And this was many years ago. We were out hunting together and he had this gorgeous red-tailed hawk. I don't remember her name, but it was a female, this big, big bird. And we were out there and just this relationship. He'd had her for many years, and the longer that you have birds, there starts to be this very, it's always a communication without words,
Mhm.
but they just really get with the program, and I've had birds in the field, at first it's all food based, all rewards based, but then once you've been with them for several months or several years even, I've had birds that they learned their name. They would be way up in a tree, hundreds of yards away, and I would say, let's go, Zorn. And they would fly to the tree right above my head, and then they would fly right to my glove. And that feeling of them hitting the glove, they're not heavy birds. They're really only 3 pounds, but the force which they come in and then grab the glove. I mean, it is terrifying every single time. They're so strong and they're so sharp, those talons.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to capture that feeling of like the power of the bird, but then also this, if she's not being aggressive towards him, they have this understanding. So I actually took this photo that I had taken and I manipulated it. I actually tilted it significantly so that I wanted that movement to really show. So I tilted him back quite a bit. And then I took those reeds in the foreground and I counterbalanced them. They actually were blowing in the picture, but I even pushed it even further to sort of create this tension of movement, and then used the hair of his his blowing hair to really just push this movement, that tassel that's hanging off of the gauntlet or the glove,
Yeah.
it's blowing, it's incorporating this turn, which then is picked up in the tail feathers. There's just this strong movement. So yeah, this painting is the culmination of many years. I've wanted to paint these falconry scenes for a long time and I just didn't feel ready or confident enough. And so yeah, so personally it's a triumphant painting. And then I actually am going to a show opening on Wednesday night, and this painting is in the Hoosier Salon this year at the Indiana State Museum. So I'm excited.
Yeah, super exciting. And I love it. You were mentioning the brushwork and what you did to balance it out. There's lots of wonderful movement in it in different directions, but still very stable. You kind of got this inverted pyramid of a composition that kind of keeps it from tipping over one way or the other. And it really works out lovely.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And my transparent oxide red and yellow from Rembrandt were pivotal because I did a lot of underpainting with those. I don't usually work in layers that way, but for this one I did. So you can see like on the sleeve there, that
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
underpainting. And when you see it in real life, you can see it more in the bird. Sadly, in the picture,
Hmm.
you can't see it as much, but through the hat, in the gauntlet and the glove, you can see that warmth that I left in there. And transparent oxide yellow, I just added to my palette again after years of
Great
hiatus.
color too. Yeah.
I love it. It's like a little bit less powerful
Hmm.
than transparent oxide red. Sometimes transparent oxide red can just be like a little too much, and then the
Right.
transparent oxide yellow just is its sort of more calm sister, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. The other two that I really like are the brown and the orange. The transparent oxide orange really is just a combination of the transparent oxide red and yellow mixed together.
I've
Um,
never tried that one.
yeah, so it's kind of a convenience color, if you will. You could do the same thing with the yellow and the red and just mixing them. But the transparent oxide orange, I really enjoy right out of the tube. It's really a fun color. And the brown is a really warm kind of umber color that's uh, based on a PR 101, which is the same red as the transparent oxide red. So it's got a little more kick than burnt umber. It's a nice color.
I need to try that again. I think right here I have a really, yeah, see, this is all that I have left of my transparent oxide brown. So pitiful. But I have used this and I've seen Nancy Guzik, she painted an entire
Yeah.
portrait practically with using this and white for the skin tone.
Hmm.
It was unbelievable. So I think I need to,
Glowing colors. And I love
I need to
the
order
way the
this.
sky complements it all. It's just a wonderful color. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. That's so nice of you.
All right, I am going to stop the share so folks can see us again. That was wonderful to look at the paintings together and to hear you tell the stories.
Thanks for
So
giving me the
meaningful.
chance.
Yeah,
It's fun. I have to care about what I'm painting, you know. I think
yeah.
that's why I love portraits. It's like and figurative pieces, you know, there has to be a reason
Hmm.
for me to really, you know, it takes a lot of work to make a painting. So
It does, it does, and it shows. It shows that you're invested in your subject, and that really makes those portraits that much more meaningful. But even with the still lifes, you're trying to pull something out there that's unique in that experience of seeing. That's really wonderful.
thank you. That's really nice of you. It was fun to look at with you.
You bet, you bet. Um, So we're getting close to the end. So I thought what we could do is talk about any upcoming workshops, events. You mentioned your Patreon a couple times. Maybe share a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah. To tie back to what we talked about at the beginning, you know, community and, you know, building your skill set, you know, no matter where you are. I'm very passionate about that. And I personally have benefited so greatly from painting with great artists. You know, so much of our studio time is private and needs to be private. You know, like your most deep, serious thought really is best done alone in the studio with your work. But too much of that and you start to not be able to see the beauty of what you're really doing, you know, and it's like becomes an echo chamber. I have found, you know, the times when I have been the most isolated, I destroy my paintings the quickest, you know, and then I look back later at the photos and I'm like, I was done. Why did I just, you know, what is going on with me? And I just couldn't, I didn't have any ability to get outside of myself. And so, and then, as I mentioned, painting the portrait, you know, it's so vital to every other subject matter. You know, if you're a landscape painter, painting the portrait will help. If you're a still life painter, painting the portrait will make those better. And so, over the last year and a half, my husband and I, we have been live streaming model sessions because the thing that is portraiture's greatest weakness, I would say, is that you have to have someone become sit for you. You have to be able to pay them by and large. You know, you have to have space for them. You have to have the lighting. You know, there's some things that you have to have in place in order to make it happen for yourself or have a group but that you can go to. But not all of us have a life drawing group near us, you know. And so there's so many artists that I've run across in the last several years that say like, oh, I want to paint portraits, I want to get better at it, but I can't, you know, there's no group. I don't have a big studio. I don't have the lights, you know, I can't invite people in, you know, it's not XYZ, all these reasons. And so I realized, okay, how do I make this more accessible for people? So I live stream models sitting from life twice a month for 3 hours. And so you can see all of the form turns. You can see it's 4K resolution. So, you know, it's the very next best thing to painting from life because what I saw was, you know, I'd be at Portrait Society doing a portfolio critique maybe. And someone would come up and be like, oh, I'm working on portraiture. And they'd show me the painting and then they'd show me the image they were working from. And, you know, I can't paint from life because of maybe any of the reasons I stated. And I see the photo and it's a cell phone photo. And then they're saying, I don't understand value and I don't understand color temperature shifts. Can you please help me? And I'm looking at what they're painting from and I'm like, of course you don't, because you can't see any of it. You know, it's so blown out in this picture. You can't see any color shifts, you know, and so that's my whole purpose with, it's called Broadcasting Brushers. My live streaming is to give people easy access to paint the portrait, but then also to get outside of themselves and get into a community of artists. And it's so cool because it's completely global. So, you know, there'll be people that are
Yeah.
using a medium I've never even heard of, you know, so I'm sharing my whole process. But then artists, there's a chat going live so you can see everybody's paintings as they progress. And it is so much fun. And I have seen such a crazy increase of people's skills. So people can find that on my Patreon. The Patreon is called Confident Breaststrokes because there's a lot more there. A lot of demos from me. I have a tier that's all about the principles. So this academy tier, if you're like, I don't actually know what color temperature is, what is the difference between hue and chroma, what are values even? How do I even learn to draw, all these things. So all that's on the Confident Breaststrokes Patreon, and it would be so fun for people that are here. If you want to come paint with me, please do. I would love to
We'll
paint with
post
you.
it. We'll post it in the chat, and you know what I'll do is I'll do a slide at the end too with some credits, if you will, and we'll
That'd
put
be
all that
great.
information for everybody. So hang around to the end, everybody, and you'll see all that information. But also keep an eye on the chat because Stephanie and I are going to be answering away as you're watching.
Be in there, tip tapping away. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it. It's a
It's
great,
been so fun.
perfect first show.
Yeah, thank you for having me as your first artist. That's an honor. And I'll finish with this really quick. You probably were way over our time maybe, but I remember I met you, Jeff. I think I was 18 years old and we were at a conference, and I remember I was buying your paints like crazy, loving Rembrandt, and I just walked up and I was like, with all the confidence of an 18-year-old, was like, I love your paints, and one day, I can't remember what I said, but I was like, one day I want to be an ambassador. I think I literally said that to you right out of the gate, and was like, I like, my paintings are trash at this point, I had no right, but I was like, I love them, and I am, I use them, and I bought a whole bunch of them there. I was like, I am going to one day this company is going to hopefully care about my paintings. Like, it was like, literally, I remember it just like, I am going to make a face-to-face interaction here because I am working so hard and I love these paints. And now here we are, and you
Here
asked me
we
to be on
are. That's a great story.
asked me to be here. So anyway, proud of my 18-year-old self and all the work I've done in the last 10 years
Absolutely.
to hopefully make that happen. So thank you. It's really a fun, it's more than just a fun night. It's like, it was my dream since I was literally a kid. So
That's great.
thanks.
Well, it's fantastic to have you as a spokesperson for the materials and to have you affiliated with the program. It's just fantastic. So thank you very much.
Of course. Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for being
You
here.
bet. Thanks everybody for joining us. Like I said, stay tuned for some of the information in terms of where to go to find out more about the Patreon and everything else that's going on with Stephanie, and of course, Royal Talents. And we will see you all next time at the Creator Studio. Thanks everybody. Goodbye.
See ya.